So it seems Frank Martin is making a return to the ring. Frank Martin, of course, being known for facing Gervonta Davis for the lightweight world title in 2024. He was undefeated at the time he fought Gervonta Davis. He was 18-0 with 12 knockouts. He then got beaten up by Gervonta Davis. So, he absolutely bottled it on that big occasion. And Frank Martin was a guy going into that fight who, if I'm being honest, a lot of people, nobody picked him to win that fight in my opinion, but a lot of people picked him to potentially cause Gervonta Davis some problems because, again, he is one of the guys who's bigger than Gervonta Davis and he's a southpaw. He was undefeated. And yes, he hadn't fought anyone impressive in terms of name value. Frank Martin hadn't fought anyone. But again, he was 18-0, 12 knockouts. He looked like a half-decent boxer at times against these guys. So you're thinking, well, maybe he could give Gervonta some trouble. He didn't. He absolutely bottled it when he went in there. And that being said, he hasn't fought since. He estimated got a $1.5 million payday. So no doubt, you're not in any rush to get back in the ring after you get paid over $1 million to fight, right? That being said, it looks like he's returning on October 25th on the Fundora v Keith Thurman card in Las Vegas. Frank Martin's going to be fighting a former two-weight division world champion in Rancis Barthelemy, who's a Cuban boxer, like I said, a former two-division world champion, who's got a record of 30 wins, 3 losses with 15 knockouts. Now, a lot of people are saying that this is a bit of a step down for Martin, which, in my opinion, it is somewhat, because despite Barthelemy being a two-division world champion, he is far removed from his prime. He's a fighter who's pushing 40 at this point. And if we're being honest, is 5, 6, 7 years removed from his prime at this point. And Frank Martin should have too much youth in him, despite having quite a bad loss against Gervonta Davis, should overall still have enough left in the tank to beat a guy like Barthelemy. But if this was a prime Barthelemy, then Frank Martin would have a lot more trouble on his hands. He'd have his hands a lot more full than with this version of Barthelemy. This version of Barthelemy is the former version of Barthelemy was a slick Cuban boxer with a lot of experience as an amateur and becoming quite seasoned as a pro. And of course, mixed it at world level. But as always, you don't fight these guys in their primes. You fight these guys when they're on the back end of their primes, and they're seem a bit more of a soft touch. But yeah, it's seen as a bit of a step down from Martin, especially going from fighting Gervonta Davis. Whereas you probably expect someone like Martin to go in there and mix it with someone else near the top of the division at lightweight. But honestly, there'd be no point because Frank Martin loses to anyone half decent at lightweight in terms of guys at the top of that division, in terms of your Shakurs, your Zepadas, your Kid Austins, your Andy Cruzes. I mean, Keyshawn Davis isn't at 135 anymore, but the likes of those boxers, they all would smoke Frank Martin. In which case, someone like Frank Martin needs to fight a guy like Barthelemy and win that fight, and then maybe get a chance against one of those guys in what would be seen as, for him, a bit more of a money fight. But yeah, Frank Martin's back, and he'll probably beat Barthelemy. If he does, then maybe we'll see him try and call out one of the big names at 135 in one last attempt for a payday. If not, and he loses, then at that point, bro, you should really start to reconsider some stuff, because if you're losing to Barthelemy at this point in his career, then you got to question, will you ever actually become a world champion? Or mix it at the top at 135 ever again? But yeah, we'll find out. I'd be curious to know what you guys think of this fight, what you think is next for Frank Martin and Barthelemy. But yeah, another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.